The future of cities is being decided on the African continent. Here, global megalopolises are growing to house more than 1/3 of the world's population. The result is gray concrete landscapes, whose construction results in enormous CO2 emissions. But one solution lies within Africa itself. It's earth. The red raw material is easily available, economical, and above all, climate-friendly. It's a material for modern construction that reaches back to forgotten knowledge. This is the story of a new beginning, one that produces heroes and celebrates its pioneers, visionaries of architecture who are wrestling with the material of the future. This is a journey to the people who embody this new beginning and to the buildings they're constructing. A sandy plot of land, a dilapidated house, and an architect.
I'm Francis Kéré, or to be precise, my name is Diabedo Francis Kéré. I was born in Burkina Faso. These days, I divide my time between Germany, Burkina Faso, the United States, and many other cities in Africa. And I enjoy it.
Kéré and his team want to develop an idea here and build a place for culture and education, for networking and celebrating. It's to be a new home for the Goethe-Institut in Senegal. Back in Berlin, ideas are turned into drafts, and the future building starts taking shape. The client wants it to have a cultural connection to West Africa, with sustainable architecture, including in the choice of construction materials.
What's special about the Goethe-Institut in Dakar is that we're using loam to build the structure. Earthen material stabilized with cement. These bricks are being used to build a cultural facility for a German institution in Africa. That's great because it clearly demonstrates the importance of sustainability. That's why the Cultural Institute in Dakar, Africa is being built using earthen material.
Dakar. From a peninsula in the Atlantic Ocean, the city spreads into the hinterland. 4 million people live in Senegal's dynamic capital on the Atlantic coast, 1/4 of the country's population. That's projected to grow to 10 million people by the middle of this century. Typically, for expanding African megacities, much here is unplanned and makeshift. The infrastructure is already chronically overloaded, and there's a lack of public and green spaces. Living space is expensive and scarce, so many people build their own homes over several years, cement bag by cement bag, wherever there's room or somewhere on the outskirts. Modern Dakar, a city as a massive construction site. In the concrete jungle of the Ngor district, one house stands out. Brick red, 5 stories high, built entirely of mud bricks. The structure of the facade creates areas of shade. courtyards provide light and air. It's proof that alternative construction methods work. It was designed and built by the Worofila architectural firm in Dakar. Nicolas, Rondet, and Nzinga, Mboup.
My name is Nzinga. I am an architect. I co-founded Worofila with a couple of other architects, and right now I'm associated with Nicolas. And the Worofila is an architectural practice that focuses on bioclimatic architecture.
Young architects in Africa who, like Kéré, want to revolutionize building. They launched their mission in 2019.
I do feel that as an African, we need a bit more of a radical approach that is sort of anchored in our traditional knowledges to really make buildings and cities that sort of work better for us from a climatic point of view, from a cultural point of view, from an economical point of view. And I do believe that the use of locally sourced material, low-tech materials, is going to enable us to do that.
Africa's red earth, weathered soil millions of years old, known as laterite. Aluminum and iron oxide lend it its typical red color.
My name is Amadou Doudou Deme. We are at our production unit in Gondigal, and I am a civil engineer.
In the hinterland of the metropolis of Dakar, in the vastness of the Sahel savannah, is where Doudou Deme finds the raw material for his brick factory.
Here at our production unit, we produce everything from local bio-based and geo-based materials. We make compressed earthen bricks. We make adobe, which is molded mud bricks. These compressed earthen bricks are made from a mixture of laterite. It's the kind of soil you find throughout the area, throughout the Dakar region. The laterite is mixed with sand and cement, moistened and then compressed. The bricks are stored under a tarp for 3 weeks, after which they're ready to be used in construction.
Using a manual press, they can produce 1,000 bricks a day here, 15,000 when all the presses are running at full capacity. But that remains the exception, since mud bricks are a niche product in the construction industry.
Mud is considered to be a building material for the poor, so the idea is to change attitudes by showing that it's possible to work with it. The oldest buildings in the world are made of earth. It's durable, eternal, and sustainable. It's reversible, as long as you don't use cement. Today it's absurd that people spend so much energy building concrete buildings. When it gets hot, they sleep outside, or they turn on the air conditioning and spend even more money. The idea is to bring some logic back into all of this and build using materials as efficiently as possible.
Doudou Deme is a pioneer in his field. He founded his company, Elementerre, 15 years ago, and today its reputation has spread far beyond the African continent. Deme works closely with the team from Worofila. Today, Nzinga Mboup is picking up an order of bricks for a construction project on the coast. An hour south of Dakar, a family from outside Senegal is building a new home.
The thinking was to be able to create a fairly compact home. This is only a 3-bedroom house, but to ensure that we have all the various principles of passive design that are important to us. So cross ventilations, natural lighting, and also have an envelope that is built entirely with earth in order to have the thermal resistance that we need for the regulation of the internal temperature. So the focus is mostly on having the ventilation, having a lot of flow as well.
Nzinga Mboup is one of the few women architects of her generation in Senegal. After studying in South Africa and London, in 2017 she decided to return to West Africa. She wanted to be independent and to make a difference for modern African architecture.
There's sometimes a lot of skepticism when it comes to what can be done. You know, people have a lot of constructs that have developed over time and that we need to deconstruct by actually doing. So it helps that we have clients that are willing to go for it, that we have architects, engineers, contractors that are all participants in this revolution. And one building at a time, we're showing that it's possible and more people are adhering to it.
Laterite, red earth in an ideal mixture with sand and silica. It characterizes the landscape and is abundant in West Africa, a region larger than the entire European Union. Laterite costs almost nothing, and transport distances are short. So why is this traditional red building material hardly used here anymore? A 3-hour flight from Dakar is Accra on the Gulf of Guinea, once a fishing village, then a major outpost in the gold and slave trades, and long a center of British colonial rule. Since 1957, it's been the capital of Ghana, which was the first former colony in sub-Saharan Africa to declare its independence. The buildings from that era are a self-confident expression of identity and nation building. The city is a magnet for increasing numbers of people seeking their fortune in this rapidly growing metropolis. Accra has always been a place of critical debate and political resistance against any form of external control, including when it comes to architecture.
What is African architecture? I would say very firmly, we are in the process of finding out. Decolonization for me is not about replacing one narrative with another, it's actually about expanding the narrative. You then have to teach, encourage, develop how to build. So decolonization has a trajectory which is about undoing, but it also has a trajectory which is about building and making that is often not spoken about.
Leslie Loco founded the African Futures Institute in 2021 in her home city of Accra as a Pan-African think tank. But above all, the Ghanaian-Scottish academic and thought leader wants to build a world-class architecture school here, in Africa, for Africa, where the construction challenges are enormous, but formal architecture education is lacking. Accra lies in the middle of a densely populated coastal strip between Nigeria and Ivory Coast. 40 million people live on 1,000 kilometers, and the population is growing dynamically. House by house, the African megacity of concrete is growing here on the Gulf of Guinea.
This material is not just some grey stuff. It's charged with life, social symbols, challenges and projections for the future. Building permanent structures is a way of saying to the municipality, to the state, look, I've invested a lot of money here, and if I've built something, it means I'm legitimate. It means I have a right to stay. That's what's interesting about this material. It's both the material of the rich, who use it to construct huge buildings, and also the material of the poor. It's a way for them to try to improve their living conditions too, to avoid the flooding and displacements that are commonplace in these cities.
Geneva-based researcher Armel Choplin studies the astonishing success story of concrete in West Africa and how a symbol of the colonial era and Western modernity became an everyday product. Once, the building material of cement was imported expensively. Now it's made in Africa. The grey matter became a promise of happiness.
With sand, water, and the all-important material cement, we build cities, houses to live in, factories for manufacturing, bridges so we can cross the rivers with ease. Breaking their backs, the builders build with loving and infinite care.
The price of cement is a bit like the local Dow Jones, the stock exchange. We can gauge a country's economic health based on the tons of cement produced and the companies that exist. Above all, the dream of most West African residents and city dwellers is to try to build a house for themselves, for their future, for their descendants. For example, a couple may buy bags of cement as a gift, as a long-term investment in their commitment.
No construction without cheap concrete, but at a high ecological price. There's no concrete without cement, but the production of cement is already responsible for up to 8% of global greenhouse gas emissions. And there's no concrete without sand, but the often illegal extraction of sand threatens the ecological balance of West Africa's coastlines.
You know, we're the world's fastest urbanizing continent. I mean, in 25 years, the stretch of urban corridor between Lagos and Abidjan will be the most densely populated place on the planet. So there is an incredible time pressure. I want to use that pressure to galvanize support for this place, because this is not something that we have another 100 years to think about. Actually, we've got to think and act now.
That was further reason for Leslie Loco to take on yet another task, the 2023 Venice Architecture Biennale, as its first curator of African descent. She used the opportunity to put African architecture in focus, well aware of the responsibility she'd taken on.
I was very conscious of the fact that studying in the West, it was as if Africa didn't exist. So I would say as a student, being black was somehow an anomaly. Like, you weren't supposed to be an architect. There were no references of architects who looked like me or who came from places that I understood. I think now I've come to understand it differently. I think it's actually the canon is lacking the way to understand what Africa can contribute to architecture. I think the world is slowly kind of waking up to that.
Back in Senegal, the greater Dakar region is growing with a similar dynamism to Accra, with the same grey matter creeping through the landscape. Urban sprawl, interspersed with large-scale projects from the drawing board. But while everyone's talking about the city of the future, Nzinga Mboup is setting off to try to understand the past. Nzinga is one of only 300 registered architects in Senegal. More than 90% of the buildings in the country are constructed without an architect. Her friend and teacher Jean-Charles Tal has witnessed the decline of building culture. Since at some point there were no longer any architecture faculties in the country, he founded a college. For 20 years, it's been one of the few places offering young people in West Africa a basic education in architecture.
What's great about this generation is that they're determined to move forward. They're demonstrating that they can do something modern using earthen material with different technological approaches. Using that material is very, very important. Are they failing? Are they succeeding? That becomes a secondary issue. What's important for them is to test things out. Not just to talk about bioclimatic architecture, but to produce a bioclimatic culture. I think they'll need a few years of existing in between worlds. They're still searching. They'll manage to move things forward that way. But it won't be easy.
Tal says the problem began in the 1980s, when air conditioners became standard in African cities, making it unnecessary to build in a climate-friendly way. Traditional know-how was lost. Dakar had been a laboratory for architecture in the decades before and after independence in 1960. A self-confident African architectural modernism emerged, with a geometric design language inspired by the cultures of the Sahel region. These were the golden years of architecture. The tropical modernist buildings were made of concrete, but with ingenious solutions for light, air circulation, and shade. Senegal's first president, Léopold Sédar Senghor, had those ideas applied to his own residence. Directly next to it is where the new Goethe-Institut will be built.
We have the neighboring Musée Senghor, the former home of the country's founder, Léopold Sédar Senghor, who was himself a man of culture. I think this design by Francis Kéré fits in beautifully with the surroundings. It's inspired in part by the Musée Senghor, by German architectural ideas, of course. We are the German cultural center here in Senegal, after all. And by Francis Kéré's own ideas, which he has already implemented and is reflected in his design.
But there's nothing to see of the new building yet. 3 years after Francis Kéré's first visit, the plot is still nearly empty, with a tarpaulin to protect the ground.
It's now December 2022, and we first had to excavate the entire area where the building is to be constructed. That's because the underlying sand could swell and cause cracks. We replaced it with different sand. We had to lay things like water pipes. You can see this blue plastic behind us. It tells you just how big the building will be.
The building is intended to fit in with the city and its history. A history that, to Nzinga Mboup, is legible in the architecture of Dakar. Along with architect Carole Diop, she is investigating how people here lived before colonization by France, in so-called penches, farmsteads arranged around a central courtyard.
The pinch denotes essentially the center of the community, which has a political nature, but also has a spatial nature. And typically, spatially, it was marked by a tree, actually, which is the place where people would gather. In addition to the tree marking the pinch, we also have a mosque, which is also why there's a mosque behind us. And this pinch in particular, because of the civic nature, also has this plaza, this esplanade that serves as gathering spaces for rituals, for ceremonies, and is really rich with teaching about how to use space and what do the people need, really.
Traces of pre-colonial housing styles can still be found here in the district of Medina. They provide inspiration for sustainable architecture that provides space for residents to have community, offering quality of life within the chaos of the metropolis of Dakar.
These trees are over 100 years old, and if we only knew all the stories that they could tell, they say that, if trees could speak, they would actually hold a lot of the community memory of our history, right? Like, we will know about all the important decisions that were made, the places where we had conflict resolutions. They actually are living archives when you think about all the important political or societal moments that happened under this tree. And it's a shame that as they are disappearing, I think a big part of the connection to that history is also disappearing with it.
These so-called palaver trees are a recurring theme in Francis Kéré's designs. Loaded with African history, they also serve as inspiration for the new National Assembly building in the Republic of Benin, the current most important contract for Kéré's architecture firm.
The Parliament building is modeled on the palaver tree. Palaver means coming together and then participating democratically and equally under the shade of the tree. But it's not just symbolic. This parliament functions much like a tree, very transparently. We then have 2 layers of walls, elements that prevent the interior of the building from overheating. But meetings are then held in a plenary hall reminiscent of a tree.
The world of the Sahel region is where Kéré's architecture is rooted, his philosophy and his way of building. This broad strip between the Sahara Desert and the Savannah, with its historic trade routes, has given rise to one of Africa's most developed building cultures. Villages of the Dogon people on the Bandiagara escarpment in Mali. These multi-story houses are made of stone and clay. Centuries old, they're now a World Heritage Site. Mud mosques, in what's known as the Sahel Sudan architectural style, among the most spectacular buildings in Africa. Wooden beams protrude like spikes from the great mosque of Bobo Dioulasso in Burkina Faso. They stabilize the mud walls and also serve as scaffolding for the annual repairs after the rainy season. Building as a natural adaptation of humans to their environment, the Nubian Vault project also works according to this principle. Standardized houses with vaulted mud brick roofs, an ancient mud construction technique from Sudan, reinterpreted. Mud is ideal for a desert climate. Its thermal inertia keeps the interior cool during the day, while at night the walls release stored heat. Francis Kéré began giving mud construction a new direction 25 years ago when he designed a school for his hometown in Burkina Faso and got everyone in the village involved in the building. The Gando Primary School has shady spots and well-ventilated classrooms made from clay bricks. There's housing for teachers and a library. The complex is a masterpiece of simple functionality and has won several awards.
Earthen material is used for traditional building in Burkina Faso. People reject it because they consider it a building material for poor people. So I modified its properties and had uniform bricks made, and then constructed a building that is modern for the people, but using a material they're familiar with. And that's so important. People feel truly honored, taken seriously, and then you've shown them a new way.
New projects followed, like a secondary school in Kodougou, where a facade of eucalyptus wood creates shaded spaces. The ensemble is arranged in a circle, as in traditional villages. The inner courtyard serves as a safe place for the community. The wide, projecting tin roof hovers over the building as a sophisticated construction designed to allow air to circulate and provide protection from the sun and rain. In Gando, construction on a community center for women has stalled. What next? Discussion in a large group. Participation is a fundamental principle for Kéré.
Building is a big task, and it requires many people working together. But it also requires many people who have experience and pass on their knowledge to the next generation. In other words, it's a communal event, a transfer of knowledge. But it's also important to know that this makes people identify with the buildings. It strengthens the sense of community, and that is very important.
Finally, for the past few months, there's been activity on the construction site of the German Cultural Institute in Dakar. Nzinga and Nicolas from the Worofila office are in charge of construction management on site. The project is being managed by engineers from Germany on behalf of the Goethe-Institut. The cooperation between Germany and Senegal is as complex as the building itself, where clay makes a compromise with concrete.
Yes, we are in fact using a hybrid construction method, meaning we are building 2 stories. We have high ceiling loads, and it's not easily possible to support these loads with the local laterite. And for stability reasons, we do have some load-bearing elements that have to be constructed using reinforced concrete.
Nearby, laying and pointing the first clay walls proves to be precision work. The Senegalese bricklayers are professionals, but they have no experience with the porous bricks made of pressed laterite. In these first few weeks, the construction site is also a clay construction workshop where everyone is learning together. French architect Nicolas Rondet came to Dakar because he believes strongly in a renaissance of clay construction.
Senegal has the internal capabilities already in place to make this vaunted leap forward, which should not involve repeating what has been done for about a century in Europe, but rather relying on its own resources to come up with a typically Senegalese response.
All the clay bricks for the Goethe-Institut are being made by Doudou Deme's company Elementerre. To fulfill the order, he's upgraded to new hydraulic machines. The commission is leading to a heavy workload in Gandigal, located an hour outside of Dakar.
With a manual press, we can make about 1,000 bricks per day. Now with hydraulic presses, we will double production. We will increase to around 2,000 bricks per day with the same number of people. And above all, what's interesting with the new presses is that we can reduce the percentage of cement. With manual presses, we use around 8%, but today with hydraulic presses, we can reduce this to 4%.
And he wants to completely replace the cement needed for stabilization in the near future. That's already possible by using tufa, an invasive bulrush species. Wet clay is mixed with dried reed leaves, and the stable blocks create particularly cool inside temperatures when building houses. That's demonstrated on the house that Mamadou Mboup has just built. The environmental activist is using the bulrushes to make a thatched roof. For the walls, he's using clay panels with tufa insulation.
Some people say tufa is an invasive plant, but it's a very useful plant for me. You can do so much with it. We build ecological houses with it.
The bulrush grows in the reed beds of the Senegal River Delta in the far north of the country. It's an ideal ecological building material. The fibers of its long leaves are tear-resistant, and its spongy tissue forms a natural insulating foam. Tufa filters water and stores CO2.
I'm in the fields from 9 a.m. until 7 p.m., until sunset, and I can harvest a lot of tufa. We have many years of experience with tufa. Nobody knows it better than us. Tufa is very much a part of my life. I love nature and come here every day to see the tufa and mangroves. That's why I also work here, because tufa also protects the mangroves.
This versatile building material is also part of an exhibition in Dakar. The Goethe-Institut is using its building site for a few days to provide information about clay construction in Africa, which is currently a focus of its cultural program. The message to visitors is clear. Much more is happening on the continent in terms of sustainable architecture than the world realizes. Every 2 years, Venice becomes the epicenter of the architectural world. Nzinga Mboup and Doudou Deme are two of the nearly 90 architects and artists that Leslie Loco has chosen to take part in the 2023 Biennale. Half of them are from Africa or the African diaspora, more than ever before. Loco has worked a long time for this moment, when the rest of the world can finally recognize the potential of the African continent.
For me, Africa has always been the place of the future. It's always been the testing ground for the future in a way. And again, it comes back to the point that we're simultaneously the world's youngest continent and the world's oldest continent. You know, everybody on this planet came from Africa at one point. So we have this quite complex relationship both to the past and to the future. But rather than this exhibition be rhetorical, one of the things I really wanted to bring was to bring it to the level of the body, to bring it to the level of the person. I mean, people are in architecture. It's not an abstract.
The Architecture Biennale is a trade summit and insider meeting with an architecture exhibition. Under Leslie Loco, it's also an art biennial and a marketplace for new ideas and concepts. The present and future of West African architecture is displayed in an installation by Francis Kéré. In the next room, an architect from Niger shows her view of earth-building culture. Floor plans, ornaments, facades, drawn on the wall in chalk. It's traditional knowledge made visible by someone who's developed a new design vocabulary from it.
My name is Mary Nisifo. I'm an architect based in Niger and in New York. And earth is definitely perceived as the material of the poor. And so it contributes to the perception that earth buildings don't last, they will collapse. But the reality is we have actually lost the memory of how to build with earth. And the pure proof of that is that in Niger, for example, we're very fortunate to have cities that are pre-colonial, that are several hundred years old. The buildings are still standing. People are still living in them. They've been living in there for 10 generations, you know, and these are standing and they're made out of earth.
Tradition is the basis for her own radically contemporary building projects. African modernism for the 21st century. All across Venice, in May 2023, the constructed world of tomorrow was being discussed. For Nzinga Mboup, a new chapter is beginning. She will develop a multi-year program in urban building culture in Senegal for CCA, an influential architectural think tank in Canada. As an international curator, she's presented with totally new opportunities.
I realize that I'm even less alone than I thought we were. And it's quite heartwarming to be able to also have those conversations and see that we're not the only ones asking ourselves those questions and that we're thinking collectively about how to redefine the role of architecture. So I'm a lot more emboldened to be able to go back and kind of continue in the multidisciplinary approach that I have to my practice and connect more as well with the others, because there's been a lot of exchanges of contacts, of emails, and with the true will to collaborate.
Leslie Loco sets the stage for her heroes in Venice, and she clearly speaks for everyone when she declares, "We architects from Africa must now write our own stories." Nzinga Mboup is not the only one to be inspired by this new self-confidence.
And to sort of see how each of us is treating this question.
David Adjaye, the award-winning architect from London, is someone who's made it. For the Biennale, he designed the wooden pyramid called Kwai, the word for forest in the Twi language of Ghana, where Adjaye's own roots lie.
Leslie Loco has really created the mark to really speak about the urgency of the development of the continent of Africa and how it can make a difference to how we see the world. She's gathered also, for me, a new generation that has not been seen. I think this is probably the youngest generation that any biennial has ever seen. It's an act of bravery, but it's also an act of, drawing the line in the sand and saying, from here, we have to do better.
After a meteoric career in the West, Adjaye moved to Accra a few years ago, bringing with him ambitious construction projects for the continent. One last tour of the architecture exhibition before heading back to Dakar. Doudou Deme, the clay brick pioneer, hopes the Biennale will give clay construction the decisive boost it needs.
I'm getting into the mindset where I tell myself that we need to start large-scale projects very quickly, and we want to stop building houses here and there that look nice and end up in magazines. All that is great, but now we want to move on to the next stage and go large-scale. We need to scale up, and that's the challenge for the future. I think we've proven ourselves when it comes to building houses. Now we need to build neighborhoods, towns, and villages. Something more significant, much more impactful.
The media celebrate the 2023 Architecture Biennale as a milestone with 300,000 visitors. In one respect, Nzinga and Doudou's hopes will be fulfilled. The exhibition in Venice has changed the view of their continent. Leslie Loco's vision was realized. David Adjaye was the first architect from sub-Saharan Africa to achieve global fame. The son of a Ghanaian diplomat grew up as part of the African diaspora. In 2019, he moved from London to Accra, near his new projects, such as the Bank of Ghana complex, and he went back to his roots.
I made it in Europe and in America. Instead of saying that that's the zenith of it, actually for me, coming back home was the zenith. It was always about coming home. In my life, in my narrative, I had to go out. I was abroad before coming home. For me, architecture is a social, political force. It shapes lives. It shapes people. And I feel that in the work that I'm doing here, I'm able to really contribute in a way that really is incredibly fulfilling.
Adjaye and his young team are fascinated by the diversity of African architecture. In Accra, the architect began experimenting intensely with local materials, especially clay, which he considers to be the most promising building material of the 21st century. He interprets it in a modern way.
We tested a rammed earth, a solid rammed earth architecture on a 3-story arts complex. And that's been a kind of big surprise to a lot of people. And we're doing it on also a big office building right now. And we're scaling up the technology and the potential of what this earth architecture can be. What we do is that we open up the market and we create new opportunities and new ways of seeing, and that's really important. At the end, you want it that people think that they thought of the idea and that it just is normal. Of course you use earth. And that moment when we have that in Africa, we know we've done our job. It doesn't matter who started it.
Adjaye also works with innovative laterite bricks that interlock with each other, enabling faster and cheaper construction without mortar. A whole series of regional hospitals is being built using modular construction methods, as here in Ghana's Ahanta West Province. Hybrid series production using clay and concrete, a glimpse into the future of clay construction? For Adjaye, it's a tough battle, as the ambitious large-scale project is politically and financially controversial. Exceptional architects, David Adjaye and Francis Kéré. Pioneers who share the experience of having to first establish careers in the West before they were taken seriously. As a boy, Kéré left his Sahel village of Gando to become a master builder. Today, he's celebrated by his industry, as at this 2023 Architecture Congress in Copenhagen.
Kéré is the anti-star. He embodies exactly what other architects do not embody. That's perhaps why he's so fascinating. And I think he's an incredibly important ambassador for defining issues in today's world. The issue's not just Africa, but really how we can work locally with sustainable materials and how we can take more responsibility for our own building. And that's what we need today. They are also role models, including for the younger generation.
And that is a generation that is internationally connected and open to experiences from other architectural cultures. It's one that no longer wants to wait to build sustainably and collaboratively. a generation that is frustrated that it took until 2022 for Francis Kéré to become the first black architect to receive the Pritzker Prize, considered the Nobel Prize of Architecture.
What the Pritzker Architecture Prize has awarded me is courage. Courage to keep pushing. And I want to encourage others, just like Africa has taught me to do.
ETH Zurich, one of the leading universities in the field of architecture. Here, Mariam Issoufou teaches architectural heritage and sustainability, and a critical view of Western architectural history. Kéré's courage also inspires her own practice as an architect in her home country of Niger.
When I first showed the renderings of what we were thinking about for this project, and the question was, this is going to be for here.
Market stalls made of pressed clay, shaded by colorful metal umbrellas, in Dandaji in rural Niger. Long, iconic. Like the new mosque in Dandaji, with its masterful brick dome, architecture that people can identify with. But for the architect, it's about much more than tradition.
What is valuable about Earth? It's not that it's an identity marker. It's that it's a thermal mass that allows us to decrease energy consumption, that allows for better health actually inside, for the air that you breathe inside. It's more affordable, to make it that way. This is what I find important. It's not an identity question. It's a logical and sort of pragmatic question. And this is where I see the opportunity, by really bringing together new solutions, hybrid solutions, technologically enhanced solutions that can really push this forward.
She designed this housing complex in Niamey after studying in the US as part of an architecture collective. Compact living space in a rapidly growing metropolis, but sustainable, made of clay with a cool interior climate, even when outside temperatures reach 45 degrees Celsius. Nearby, there was an office building project, made of a hybrid of clay and concrete. Their architectural firm was supposed to move in there too, but it remained a construction site because everything changed in Niger. Niamey, the summer of 2023. A coup d'etat. A military junta removed the president from power and suspended the constitution. On the streets of the capital, anger was directed at the West, at the former colonial power France. The economically fragile country is isolated, its borders closed for months. Mariam Issoufou has not returned to her homeland since then.
This was unprecedented, and so it had sort of catastrophic impact, both economically, geopolitically, security-wise, and on the country. And I think this is why this might take a little bit of time to resolve itself. So this is incredibly difficult, but I want to stay positive and think that this is just, sort of a little parenthesis, and this will pass, and we'll be able to return and resume the work. The office is still in Niger. We're working remotely. Thankfully, it's working very well from that point of view, but I hope to be able to return soon. But it is difficult.
She continues to work with her team in Zurich, in Niamey, and in her New York office. There are new projects inspired by traditional huts, an education center for women in Liberia. And in southwestern Senegal, a sprawling cultural complex, both above and below ground, is under construction. "200 kilometers away, a state visit to the Goethe-Institut in Dakar. The German foreign minister plans to give a speech at the topping out ceremony for the new building. Almost in passing, she learns how to successfully build a cultural institute out of clay. Then the construction site becomes a diplomatic backdrop. The security situation in West Africa is a cause for concern. So Germany is expanding its cooperation with stable democracies such as Senegal.
Even if it takes a lot of imagination to picture it along these mountains of sand, concrete mixes and bricks, a place is set to grow around this decade-old baobab tree that will make exactly that possible.
A meeting place for cultures, the Institute continues to grow. 1 year to go until the opening. As the on-site architect, Nicolas Rondet from Worofila coordinates the work, mediates, and translates. The red earth of Senegal became bricks. The bricks became a building. This construction project was uncharted territory for everyone, with sometimes surprising hurdles.
When we talk about this project, we have one foot in Senegal and the other in Germany. What we're working on is an international project of cooperation. Everyone has their own systems, and sometimes getting them to coexist is complicated. A silly example, we're not going to take into account the weight of snow on the roof of the Goethe-Institut in Dakar.
But was that a point of discussion?
Yes, it was.
In 2019, Nzinga and Nicolas set out with their firm Worofila to promote sustainable construction in West Africa, together with like-minded people. The Goethe-Institut is not their only project, but it is one they believe will put clay construction in a whole new light.
I'm standing right now feeling the winds of the ocean, in a building in which I'm comfortable. It's hot outside, but we're a lot cooler here. And there's something very central with earthen architecture that connects the human body with the matter, which I think is really quite powerful because you don't have to explain it to people, you just have to experience it yourself, and anybody can access it. I think allowing also the material to be shown, in its rawness, lets people know what it is, and also experience the benefits of it.
Architect Francis Kéré sketched his first ideas for the new Goethe-Institut in 2019. What followed was more than a construction site. It was a project that confronted tradition with technology, African with European knowledge. It questioned ingrained ways of thinking and challenged its master builders.
You struggle and despair in your little corner, and suddenly you realize there are others who are trying just as hard to bring about change. And then, of course, you feel solidarity and encourage each other. Innovation always has to do with scarcity and pressure, again and again throughout evolution. When resources become scarce, when pressure arises, change occurs. As an architect, I think that's great because I see it as an opportunity to create something that's different from the norm. I'm not afraid of that. I believe we can succeed. I want us to be positive and not put ourselves under pressure because of the change, but rather see it as a great opportunity to create something for our world.
Now the building is completed, filling with life, and the future can begin.
Und ich hoffe, dass diese Energie Deutschland inspiriert.
The Goethe-Institut Dakar in April 2026, a meeting place and symbol for a new way of building. The structure puts construction with clay in a totally new light. It's a building that has grown out of Senegal's red soil, and after years of construction, it's now finished. This is a major step forward. The future of architecture could begin in Africa.